cheating heart about a gal like my first ex-wife. Hank Williams, you wrote my life. That's an old song from Mo Banzi paying homage to legendary country singer Hank Williams.
On that tragic New Year's Day in 1953, the 29-year-old legend, Hank Williams Sr., was found lifeless in the back seat of a powder blue Cadillac. The official explanation was heart failure, blamed on years of heavy drinking and substance use. Simple, convenient, and yet almost nothing about that final journey makes sense. Decades after his demise, words have begun to spread, hints that the story about the cause of Hank's early demise wasn't the whole truth, that someone, somewhere along the way, wanted him gone. Join us in this video as we unmask the chilling truths about Hank Williams' passing, examining the official details of Hank's death. According to the official account, in the early hours of January 1, 1953, Hank was being driven from Knoxville, Tennessee, to a scheduled concert in Canton, Ohio. Behind the wheel was a college student named Charles Carr. Hank was too weak to fly, and winter weather made air travel dangerous, so they chose to drive, setting off in a powder blue Cadillac. Somewhere along the route, between Tennessee and West Virginia, Hank allegedly passed out in the back seat. When Carr stopped for gas in Oak Hill, West Virginia, he tried to wake him. Hank didn't respond. A local doctor was called and officially pronounced him dead. The cause, heart failure. Case closed, or so it seemed, because the deeper you look, the darker the story becomes. Start with the timeline. Carr maintained that Hank was alive when they left Knoxville, but others believe Hank was already in critical condition, or possibly already dead, before the car ever hit the highway. Along the route, gas station attendants and hotel staff gave conflicting accounts. Some said Hank never moved at all. Others recalled him slumped unnaturally in the back seat, silent and still. Was he asleep, drunk, gravely ill, or had he already passed away? Others later claimed that Carr appeared panicked, but was told to keep driving. If Hank was already unconscious, or worse, why wasn't medical help called immediately? Then there's the issue of the injection. Reports from the Knoxville hotel where they stopped on New Year's Eve describe a doctor giving Hank a shot, believed to be a mix of morphine and vitamin B12, meant to ease his pain and steady his tremors. But this doctor wasn't licensed to practice medicine. The substances weren't monitored, and some believe that the so-called health booster was the final blow. Combined with Hank's fragile condition and years of heavy drinking, that injection may have slowly killed him over the course of the drive. The driver, Charles Carr, was barely more than a teenager, just 17 years old. Yet when a musical icon lay unresponsive in the back seat, Carr didn't immediately stop. He didn't call the police. He kept driving. For hours. These facts make you wonder, why? Was he following orders? Was he instructed not to contact authorities until the car crossed into another jurisdiction? Some believe the route was deliberately planned to avoid stopping in places where uncomfortable questions might be asked. And who paid for that drive in the first place? Promoters? Managers? Someone who didn't want Hank to cancel yet another show. Equally troubling is the silence of those who profited most from Hank's relentless touring, his record label, concert promoters, and handlers. Even in failing health, Hank Williams was still a cash machine. His suffering didn't matter as long as tickets sold. So, did Hank pass away naturally because of failing health? Or did some people decide that his time was up and took him out? Keep watching to find out. The hard truth: Hank was killed for profit. Loud rumors have continued to spread for decades. Quiet whispers passed down for years that those closest to Hank knew he wouldn't survive that trip, and they let him go anyway. That injection may have been a gamble. Keeping Hank on the road was a risk, one they knowingly took. And in the cold calculus of the industry, a dead Hank Williams might have been just as profitable, if not more so, than a living one. In the end, we're left with a grim image: a young man's body growing cold in the back seat of a car, a teenage driver given almost no guidance, and a death certificate that raises more questions than it answers. Something wasn't right. Something was hidden. And the deeper we dig, the less Hank Williams' passing looks like a tragic accident, and the more it begins to resemble murder. Hank was no longer just a man. He was a product, a commodity. And by the early 1950s, the fight to control that commodity had grown ruthless. Take Audrey Williams, Hank's first wife, and the mother of Hank Williams Jr., their marriage was passionate and volatile, fueled by constant arguments and infidelity on both sides. Audrey had ambitions of her own. She believed she could be a country star, and frequently insisted on performing duets with Hank, despite producers and musicians quietly questioning her talent. Hank loved her, but he also blamed her for much of his stress and declining health. Their divorce in 1952, just months before his death, left him emotionally wrecked. Some people close to Hank believed his downward spiral accelerated after Audrey left. Others believe her influence went even deeper, interfering with bookings, manipulating managers, and maintaining leverage over Hank's finances. Then there's Dr. Toby Marshall, the man believed to have given Hank the final injection that may have taken his life. Marshall wasn't a legitimate doctor at all. He was a fraud, a convicted forger who had served time in prison. And yet, somehow, he ended up inside Hank's inner circle, supplying pills and injections to keep him upright and performing. This quack of a doctor was never supposed to be found in Hank's inner circle, but there were people pulling the strings and calling the shots. The answer may lie in the web of people managing Hank's career. Producers, booking agents, and promoters all had money riding on his non-stop touring schedule. Even when Hank could barely stand, he was still being booked for shows. By late 1952, his decline was impossible to ignore. He slurred his lyrics. He collapsed backstage. He forgot entire verses on stage. Still, no one stepped in to stop it. Instead, they pushed harder. More dates, longer distances, higher pressure. Why? Because a canceled Hank Williams show meant refunds. A completed show, no matter how chaotic, meant profit. And a dead Hank Williams? That meant record sales, front-page headlines, and a surge in royalties. It's a disturbing truth, but one that more insiders have quietly admitted over the years. Was Hank still useful after death? Who saw this use and wanted it? Let's see. They really wanted him gone. After Hank's death, legal battles erupted over his royalties, publishing rights, and personal belongings. Audrey, despite being his ex-wife, emerged as one of the primary beneficiaries. Hank Williams Jr., just 4 years old at the time, wouldn't gain full control of his father's legacy until much later. The estate became a battleground, dozens of hands reaching for the money machine Hank left behind. But to claim that machine, Hank had to be dead. Layer by layer, the story of Hank Williams Sr.'s death begins to look less like a tragic accident and more like a coordinated collapse. He was a man brought to his knees by addiction, isolation, and the very people who claimed to be supporting him. And as the truth comes into focus, one reality becomes impossible to ignore. Some people knew Hank was dying and let him go anyway. Some may have even helped hasten the end, because to them, Hank Williams Sr. was never just a man. He was a brand. And when the man began to fail, the brand became even more valuable without him. But as we move closer to Hank's final moments, one name keeps resurfacing, and it raises serious red flags. Charles Carr, the young college student hired to drive Hank on what would become his final trip. Carr was just 17 years old, tasked not only with driving, but with caring for a man whose body was already breaking down from years of heavy drinking, pill dependency, and untreated medical issues. Carr wasn't a trained assistant, he wasn't a medical professional. He didn't even have experience in the music business. He was the son of a businessman with connections to Hank's management. And according to Carr's own recollections, Hank was in terrible condition before the trip ever began. He reportedly couldn't walk without help and struggled to breathe. When they left Knoxville on December 30th, 1952, headed for Canton, Ohio, Hank was slumped in the back seat, his system flooded with painkillers, alcohol, and possibly sedatives. It must have been somewhere along that road that Hank Williams Sr. died. And the question remains, was it inevitable or was it allowed to happen? But the exact moment, and even the exact place, of Hank's death has never been firmly established. At first, Charles Carr insisted that Hank was alive at several points during the drive. Over time, however, his account began to shift. Details changed, timelines blurred, contradictions surfaced. Carr later admitted that Hank had been unresponsive for hours before they reached Oak Hill, West Virginia, where his death was officially confirmed. And that's where the story takes a darker turn. Some believe Hank had already died long before Oak Hill, that Carr, or someone else, was instructed to keep driving no matter what, avoiding cancellations, refunds, and uncomfortable questions. How true is this suspicion? Are there autopsy results to authenticate these suspicions? Keep watching to find out. No one chose to care about the cause of Hank's death. Even in death, Hank was a lonely man, not cared for by anyone in the world. The coroner's report and the shabbiness proved that. It vaguely listed the cause of death as acute right ventricular dilation, a form of heart failure likely triggered by a combination of alcohol and prescription meds. But no toxicology report was ever completed. No full autopsy was performed. And remarkably, the only medical figure involved in Hank's final hours was the disgraced Dr. Toby Marshall, a man whose credibility had been shattered years earlier. Then came the rumors. Some claimed Hank was already dead before the trip even began, his body placed in the car too. With so many conflicting accounts, destroyed medical records, and missing paperwork, the truth is uncomfortable. People close to Hank knew far more than they ever revealed. And now, decades later, some of those long-buried secrets are finally coming to light. By the time Hank Williams Sr. was laid to rest on January 4, 1953, over 20,000 people had flooded the streets of Montgomery, Alabama, to pay their respects. The funeral was grand, solemn, and eerily staged. Like the final act of a tragedy everyone sensed, but nobody dared to interrupt. But while fans mourned the loss of a legend, behind the scenes, a different kind of chaos was unfolding. A financial and legal war over Hank's estate, his royalties, and the secrets that needed to stay buried. At the center of that storm was Audrey Williams, Hank's ex-wife, and the mother of his only son, Hank Williams Jr. After Hank's death, she pushed for unreleased recordings to be published, licensed his name across merchandise, and reportedly blocked others from accessing his personal writings and letters. In her hands, Hank Williams became more than a man. He became a carefully controlled brand. Documents that might have revealed Hank's state of mind, his fears, or even suspicions in the days before his death were never made public. Audrey wasn't the only one with something to gain. Hank's former manager, Fred Rose, co-founder of Acuff Rose Publications and holder of the publishing rights to many of Hank's songs, also had a vested interest. Some claim Rose used his position to lock down song credits, renegotiate deals to his own benefit, and distance the company from any controversy surrounding Hank's final days. Legal documents were drafted quickly, and large sums of money began moving behind the scenes. As for Hank's final will, that remains part of the mystery. Some say he rewrote it shortly before his death, cutting certain people out and reshuffling royalties, but that version mysteriously vanished. The will that was ultimately probated favored Audrey and existing business partners heavily. Was Hank ever a person to these people, or was he just an object to be profited of? Keep watching to find out. The irony. Hank died broke. In the years following Hank's death, record executives, managers, and even certain family members amassed fortunes from his work. Yet, according to court documents and interviews from the era, Hank himself died with barely $15 to his name. That's right, the man who created some of the most iconic songs in country music history, whose voice still echoes across generations, died broke. So where did all that money go? Who funneled it away? And why was no one ever held accountable? The trail only gets darker. Decades later, when journalists tried to reconstruct Hank's finances, they ran into dead ends. Bank accounts had mysteriously closed. Publishing rights were quietly transferred. Court records were sealed or misplaced. It was as if someone had deliberately erased the truth. Even today, Hank's music generates millions each year through licensing, streaming, and cover versions. As time passed, former associates, now elderly, began speaking out. Some provided sworn statements, others unearthed letters and documents long hidden in attics and safes. Slowly, a picture emerged. Hank's death may have triggered not just public mourning, but a calculated financial takeover. His legacy wasn't built solely on music. It was built on tragedy, secrecy, and silence. And now, for the first time in decades, that silence is breaking. A startling development recently reopened the case surrounding Hank Williams Sr.'s death. A retired nurse from Knoxville, Tennessee, now in her 90s, came forward with a confession that sent shockwaves through the country music world. Her name had never surfaced publicly, yet she had worked at the Andrew Johnson Hotel in Knoxville, the very last place Hank was confirmed to be alive before his mysterious journey toward West Virginia. What she revealed reignited every buried suspicion. She claimed that on the night of December 31st, 1952, a man in a dark overcoat visited Hank's hotel room just before midnight. The man wasn't a fan or a friend. He was all business. Papers in hand, no smile on his face. According to the retired nurse, he pressured Hank to sign documents quickly, quietly, and under duress. Hank looked confused and unwell, but still lucid enough to ask, "Is this what I owe?" before signing. The nurse didn't understand the paperwork at the time, but later suspected it involved music rights or power of attorney. Why would a sick, heavily medicated man be signing legal documents on New Year's Eve, just hours before embarking on a trip that would prove fatal? What was so urgent? And who sent this man? Her testimony remained buried until 2021, when she passed away. While cleaning out the attic, her granddaughter discovered the letters, Hank's hotel registration card, and even a signed page believed to be part of that mysterious paperwork. Handwriting experts confirmed that the signature matched Hank's, though it was shakier and uneven, likely the result of his failing health. But here's the twist that changes everything. The address on the paperwork didn't belong to any of Hank's known business managers. Instead, it traced back to a shell company tied to a now-defunct Nashville music syndicate, one rumored to have connections to multiple artists whose catalogs mysteriously changed hands after their deaths. This revelation casts a dark new light on Hank's final days. It suggests he may have been manipulated into signing away his future, even as he teetered on the brink of death. The documents disappeared for decades, only to resurface now thanks to a dusty attic and a granddaughter brave enough to speak. What about Hank's son? What legacies did his father manage to leave for him? Keep watching to find out. What happened to Hank Williams' son, Hank Williams Jr.? Had it rough while growing up, but found a way to carve his own success. Randall Hank Williams, born May 26, 1949, is better known to the world as Hank Williams Jr., or Bocephus. He went to John Overton High School in Nashville, Tennessee, where he often brought his guitar to music class, performing at pep rallies and joining the choir for various school performances. He is currently an American singer, songwriter, and musician whose sound blends rock, blues, and country. Music runs deep in his family. He's the son of legendary country musician Hank Williams, the father of Sam Williams, Holly Williams, and Hank Williams III, and the grandfather of Coleman Williams. He's also the half-brother of Jet Williams. Hank Jr. started his career following in his father's footsteps, covering Hank Sr.'s songs and emulating his style. At just 14, he made his television debut on The Ed Sullivan Show in December 1963, performing several of his father's hits. The next year, he appeared as a guest on Shindig, continuing to build his early presence in music. But Hank Jr. wasn't content to live entirely in his father's shadow. As he grew, he worked to find his own voice, slowly developing a style that blended his country roots with rock and blues influences. His journey wasn't without setbacks. On the 8th of August, 1975, he suffered a near-fatal fall while climbing Ajax Peak, Montana. After a long and grueling recovery, he returned to music, carving out a place for himself in both the country rock and outlaw country scenes. A true multi-instrumentalist, Hank Jr. can play guitar, bass, upright bass, steel guitar, banjo, dobro, piano, keyboards, saxophone, harmonica, fiddle, and drums. His contributions to music were officially recognized in 2020 when he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. What do you think about the troubling truths about Hank Williams' untimely death? Do you think the perpetrators would one day face justice? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found deeper insights about who Hank Williams truly was and the personal struggles that ended his life too soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.